Come on out to Mississauga, it's the greatest place around. Where on a quiet evening you can watch the sun go down. And if you should need a friend, there are plenty to be found. That's why everybody loves that good old Mississauga.
Hello, and thank you for joining us here. I'm Matthew Wilkinson, historian with Heritage Mississauga. Please send in your questions to history@heritagemississauga.org as we explore the fascinating stories of Mississauga together. Like, subscribe, and follow us and stay up to date on all the heritage happenings with Heritage Mississauga. As part of this program, we are exploring moments, memories, and milestones from the past 50 years with past and present civic leaders and involved community members for the City of Mississauga's 50th anniversary. On this week's episode, we are thrilled to be joined by Jake Dheer as we explore his personal perspectives of moments and milestones for the 50th anniversary of our city. Jake has been a leader in Mississauga through his professional work with Rogers and Omni, but also through his extensive volunteerism with countless organizations and boards. So, thank you, Jake, for taking the time to join us here on our program for Moments and Milestones. Really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Well, thank you for having me, Matthew. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here and record some history.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let's start with a really basic question before we get into the real deep stuff. How long has Mississauga been home to you?
We moved from Kitchener in 1980 when Mom and Dad moved here, and then my program from Conestoga moved to Humber. So I ended up moving a few months later to Mississauga. So 1980.
So did you ever see yourself as setting up your roots here, like Mississauga becoming your permanent home?
You know, at that time I was young. I never even thought about it. But as time went on, I fell in love with Mississauga more than I think any other place that we were at, whether, without mentioning any other cities, but Mississauga really became home. We really liked it. Yeah, it was very good.
So, like the focus of our program, of course, is looking back. We're talking about the 50th anniversary of the city, and something well worth celebrating, absolutely. But kind of the evolution of the city over that time. So, 1980, Mississauga becomes home to you and your family. Can you talk about some of those early impressions of Mississauga? Just looking back at that time of what it was like as a new place to live and explore.
Yeah. It was 1980, and prior to that, I was raised in Kitchener in the 70s. And so there was, it was also a time where there was a lot of racism against South Asians, where the whole Pakis go home and all that.
Yep.
We moved to Mississauga, a larger city, didn't experience that here. And because I was commuting to Humber College, I found as a new person in Mississauga, the commute was crazy. Like you had to take, it wasn't as commutable. You had to take a bus or, several buses for the Mississauga Transit. And back then, if you had projects on a Saturday or Sunday, the buses ran very infrequently.
Yep.
And then, so it was to get to school would take me a long time. And then you're exhausted by the time you get back. But so then I made arrangements with a friend saying, listen, you're going, we were in the film school. So he would pick me. He was from Mississauga. He'd pick me up. We'd go together. And back then, Matthew, I'd pay him $5 a week for that. But if I look back, I think the biggest thing was really, to me, Mississauga looked so big,
right.
Compared to Kitchener. And when we frequented the temple on Sundays, our temple, the Hindu Sabha, it was a very small house on Ontario, just I think north of the 401 by Hunsa House.
Okay. Yep.
And that was where we congregated on Sundays. And eventually, my dad was a committee member. There was a secretary. They raised enough funds to build this huge Hindu Sabha temple now in Brampton, but it was a distance going from A to B, and there wasn't as much diversity. Square One was a lot smaller, but and for us to go downtown was okay. Maybe once a month we would go to Little India on Gerrard Street because there was nothing else here. So if, even for that matter, when we're in Kitchener, when Mom wanted to buy the Indian spices and all the Indian, stuff, we'd have to go once a month to Gerrard Street. That would be our Sunday, family relaxation travel day. You go there, you buy your Indian groceries, you do your Indian shopping, you have a nice Indian lunch or dinner, and then you come back, and that was your once a month Sunday trip to Toronto and Little India.
Is that something that you marvel at a little bit, perhaps? I don't know if marvel is the right word, but that cultural evolution of the city. You don't have to go to Toronto anymore, right? Like this.
No, you don't. And people from around the States even used to travel to Little India. Now I can pick up naan, I can pick up Indian spices, I can pick up paneer at my Loblaws or my Freshco or whatever have you. I can pick up okra. I can pick up, everything now is so convenient. And I think if I have to say, what would be some of the huge changes that I would have seen, other than back then, the city of Mississauga was synonymous with one name, and that was Hazel.
Of course.
That's changed.
Yes.
I've seen a lot more newcomers come in. Many of them probably don't even know who Hazel was, but they see the Hazel McCallion library, they see the Hazel McCallion, whatever, the schools and so on.
Yeah.
But I think the diversity, Matthew, has, when you look at the newcomers that have come in, Peel being one of the largest culturally diverse regions, and Mississauga certainly being part of the Peel. So I think that's been the huge difference. And then because of that, a lot of the entrepreneurs and the business people and they found the need. They've established their little Indian grocery stores or their little Arabic grocery stores or their little Filipino grocery stores or whatever have you. Yep. We had one Mississauga Chinese center at Dundas, right? 888 Dundas Street, the 9-dragon wall, absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. But guess what? Now we've got the Mississauga Chinese Center right at Central Parkway and Burnhamthorpe. Now we've got the one by Eglinton and Dixie. I think it's called the Pacific Mall. So there's, you're seeing, and a lot of the communities have grown. When you look at Carasaga, we used to boast that it was the largest multicultural festival in Mississauga. Well, now it's the largest multicultural festival in Canada and one of the largest in North America. Yeah. And, back then, when it started, was about 10 pavilions. Now it's got, I think, north of 25 pavilions, different countries that celebrate the cultural diversity of Mississauga, but of Canada. So, so there's a lot of, I think, changes that have happened. There's lots of changes even in municipal and, for that matter, all levels of government politics. The population has grown quite a bit. Now we're, instead of building this way, we have to build upwards. Yep. It's taking longer to get from A to B now. So it's been, there's been a lot of changes, but, my family and I, we often talk about, would we want to live anywhere else if we had the choice? Or we don't even know. We don't say that. We actually say, Mississauga is a great place to live, even now. I mean, even with all in fact, even more so now. Let me change that. Even more so now, because you've got, as much as the commute is still challenging because it's taking longer now to get to square one, taking longer now to get to pro credit, but you see the development,
Yep.
and you see what's happening in Port Credit. Our once in a while you'd go down to the Toronto waterfront, but now we equally love going down to the Port Credit waterfront.
Yep.
Going for that long walk and the
And we see
the
what's coming to Lakeview
lighthouse.
too, right? Like you see
Oh,
Lakeview, yeah.
Lakeview's beautiful. We go for many walks there during the summer as
Yep.
well. So it's really good. You don't need to go anywhere anymore. You can get everything here in Mississauga through the cultural diversity, the bike trails, your everything. It's incredible, and um,
That can be the new byline. Everything is here.
everything is here. That's right.
Now, you had, and I've got so many questions percolating in my head, and yeah, you had a long career with Rogers, but Omni as well. You must have seen through even just your community interactions and your programming decisions that evolution of the city viewership, I guess, or yeah, of the cultural dynamic of the city. That must have played out in real time for you as well.
Yes, absolutely. You know, when I started Rogers TV a long time ago, I was a volunteer in 1990, and then was blessed to get this job to get the station manager job in 1998, and then what I'm doing now. Uh, but I think, back then we were producing very limited content that was not focused as much on cultural diversity.
Okay.
It was a lot more, if you had a garden in your backyard, but you wanted to talk about it, guess what? You can come on and we can do a garden show. Eventually, when diversity came in, cultural diversity, you started to see a lot more folks wanting to be on the channel, wanting to have opinions, wanting to share their opinions. So we started doing daily news. What was once plugged in then became First Local, which was daily news.
Yep.
And then we did a lot of live call-in shows. Mississauga being the sixth largest city in Canada does not have, or did not, and even still doesn't, but at that time did not have a daily. It does not have a daily newspaper, does not have a television channel, does not have, radio and all that. So Rogers TV provided that venue to have that. We can learn about our neighbors. The only time I think the Toronto media came was, if something was, if there was a murder or crime or whatever, or if
Yep.
Hazel had something to say. Otherwise,
Hazel was speaking.
exactly. Otherwise, there wasn't really any, and so I find Rogers played a very large role
Absolutely.
in engaging and bringing up the voice. So when I think about, all the elections and the debates we did and the candidates, learning about your candidates, they were all given time on air to speak about their platform, and then to do the debates that were aired live, and then election night.
Yep.
It kept the community engaged, and of course entertained, but most importantly informed, so they
Right.
could make the right decisions being informed. I think that was really good. And then I was blessed, Matthew, and I've always said this, when I with this job, with the job in Mississauga, Rogers TV, it allowed me to engage. And I never considered a 9 to 5 job. For me, it was, I'm the community station manager of this beautiful community channel. It's the community channel, so I need to be engaged in the community, and I did. I got so engaged in every way, every aspect. I am blessed that there isn't probably any organization that I've not been a part of in some capacity.
Yep.
And that's in my role by sitting on boards, by providing oversight, insight, guidance, whatever, or sitting on a committee, or becoming a sponsor, or hosting an event, or whatever it is. But People often talk about what Jake is, MCs a lot of events and all that, and I do. I'm blessed.
You're the city crier.
And, but at the same time, I have sat on so many boards and made significant changes. When I think about, the what we did with Mississauga Board of Trade, what we did with well, there's been so many. My first gig was Mississauga Central Lions Club, and I was just I think I just joined, so 19 or 20.
Right.
I was the youngest one, and Lewis Lawrence, got me in there with my dad, and they were they were my mentors, because they were all much older than me. They guided me, coached me, and I've always remembered that. I remember I started volunteering at Trillium, who through Trillium and their show Healthwise allowed me to engage with Rogers TV, allowed me to start my incredible volunteer journey, but then my incredible career with Rogers and what I'm blessed to be a part of. And there's so many engagements. The Mississauga Board of Trade Living Arts Center, whether it's UTM, Sheridan College, the City of Mississauga's Economic Development Board, Hazel's Gala. Yeah, I mean, Community Living Tribute, and they did a Community Living Tribute dinner under my name. Yeah, and in fact, that's when, in the past, and this tells you the shift. In the past, Community Living Mississauga used to do, prior to 2009, they used to do tribute dinners each year. And it was usually somebody from the city or somebody who's the minute when they asked, I was blessed when they asked me if they could use my name and have a tribute dinner in my name. The theme was Indian, and the committee dressed in Indian. The entertainment was Indian. The food, the decor, everything, and they said, "Wow, the world!" And it was at that time the most number of people that had ever been at that event in its 22-year history back then. The most number of sponsorship and most number. I mean, it was incredible. But that spoke to how Mississauga was shifting and changing. And then after that, we did, Jack Brazerish, the Portuguese, we did Chinese, we did, different cultural, because they realized that, what, there are a lot of cultural folks, cultural leaders that we need to highlight and profile. But these are just some of the things. There's a long list of organizations I've been blessed to be a part of, and where I've actually move the needle in many aspects.
Well, I was going to say that's a question on my list, and I wasn't even sure how to answer that, how to ask that to you, because I know that you've touched so many and been touched by many. You've already spoken about so many. Maybe this is an unfair question to ask, and feel free to decline if you like. But I'm trying to think of the organizations that you have been connected with that really, in your eyes, have had a big impact on the evolution of the city identity, the evolution of this place that we call home, making it a better place. And it might be all of them, but just the Lions Club. I mean, I had the opportunity to interview Lewis Lawrence before he passed, and you think of the unheralded stuff that goes on in the background. I think of the Rotaries and the Lions clubs, and heck, there's so many more. The Knights of Columbus,
Yeah.
and we go on and on. But just through your eyes, and again, maybe it's an unfair question to ask, but those groups, organizations that you've connected to that really help shape the identity of the city.
Yeah, no. Well, so I was blessed with the Mississauga I was blessed to receive the Melville Jones International Award for community community service, which is their largest. It's the Paul Harris of Lions, and I was blessed to receive the Paul Harris Fellowship as well. Although I'm not a member of Rotary, but I've been engaged with Rotary, Mississauga Central Lions Club, Trillium Health Partners Foundation, and Heritage Mississauga, of course. I've learned so much. Mississauga Sports Council. Karasaga was something that I was quite engaged with, involved with. My ask to Karasaga was, when you go to a pavilion, 95% of the people are from that culture and that community. If we're to integrate and learn from each other, then we all need to be together. And so my pitch was, let's, instead of driving around to all these different places, let's be in one place. And they've started to do that, which makes me very happy. Intern Place, Legends Row, MCBA. I'm an advisor to the Mississauga Chinese Business Association. Mississauga Board of Trade. I was a board member, then became the chair. And there were significant challenges that were happening with the leadership, and I had to, when it was brought to my attention, we had to make significant changes. And I was, we hired then Sheldon after that, and the organization then pivoted in the direction that where we wanted it to go. So Hazel still says to me that that was great decision. So, well, she doesn't still say that to me because she's no longer with us. But Mississauga Board of Trade. Living Arts Center, I sat on the board for a very long time. UTM's Principal Advisory Council, Sheridan College's campaign cabinet, where we were, looking to bring a campus to Mississauga and trying to raise some funds for them. City of Mississauga's Economic Development Board, where I worked with Larry Petavello on a volunteer committee. We sat on the board, learned about how we can engage. The world was shifting, businesses, economies. It was. And how do we make sure that Mississauga is a great place to do business? And how do we engage some international businesses? So City of Mississauga's Tourism Advisory Committee, when I think about, the hotels and the events and how can we bring them here to Mississauga and create a tourism space. Hazel's Gala Committee, I remember I wasn't a part of it, but Rogers was a sponsor. So I remember going to Hazel one time, and because Hazel had her show on Rogers TV.
Yep.
And I had to go to her house for some reason. And it was the day after the gala, her gala. And she goes, "What do you think of the gala?" I said, it was great, but Madam Mayor, I got to tell you, like, when you call up the committee, I don't mean any disrespect, but I don't see cultural diversity, and your city is changing. And she goes, that's a very good point. The next day, I got a call from Maureen Ellis saying, "Jake, the mayor would like to have you sit on our gala committee." Since then, I became a part of the gala committee, and Hazel was a woman
How
of
can you
action.
say no to Hazel?
Well, she was a woman of action. She understood the right thing, right? And so then I was blessed to be a chair 1 year of the event. And then the Mississauga Waterfront Festival, Volunteer Center of Peel Children's Aid Foundation, where I sat on the board for a long time. Carolyn Parrish's Milk Fund and all the stuff I do with her and the great work she's doing in raising funds for the city and for the food banks. The Community Living Tribute Dinner, a lot of engagement at that level as well. They had my event, and then they asked me to sit on the committee, and they I guess they found value that I could contribute. So I did that. The Peel Regional Police's Chief Resource Council originally was the Sikh Advisory Council, but then we've changed it to Peel Regional's Resource Council. Again, the chief wanted me to be a part of that to provide insight. When you look at all the stuff that's going on in our city and our region, I'm blessed that I'm able to provide input in that. The Waterfront Festival, Canada Day, I've been a part of that for a very, very long time. And when Celebration Square opened, I was the first one to host the Canada Day celebrations at Celebration Square, and the New Year's Eve as well. So, that was a first, and I've continued to do a number of events there. So the opening of Celebration Square, and this, I've been a sponsor of, Rogers TV, Jake Dheer. We've been sponsors of so many events, whether it's Southside Shuffle, ETEL Fest, Mosaic, Living with Wellness, you name it. But also my engagement as whether I'm seeing or hosting or being on a committee or whatever it is, providing insight and all that. So it's been an incredible journey. And this is why, even the Safe City Mississauga, when I look at, this is why Geetha and I and the kids, we love Mississauga. We love our neighborhood. We love our city. this is home for us. This is really home. And some of the people that made an impact in my life, when I look at Mississauga, Matthew, Rogers TV, number one.
Yeah.
And I was blessed that, from a volunteer to being blessed with the position I got, was wonderful. And what I've been able to do, I've been able to be an entrepreneur in a corporate world. And, leaders like Bruce Matheson, who hired me, and then Colette Watson, our president and CEO, have allowed me that. And then Hazel McCallion, of course, was a great mentor. I could go to her for guidance, and she would come to me and give me advice whether I liked it or not, I wanted to hear it or not. But she was a real good friend, and she loved her family. She loved my dad and mom and the kids, and same, and we would go to her house, and so that she was wonderful. Ron Lennox, played a big impact in my life.
Yes.
He was like an elder brother who I loved and respected. And he loved my kids so much. He loved Geetha. He used to make fun of me all the time and forever, but he loved the kids so much. He would, when he was at the Mississauga News or when he was at Living Arts Center, he would say, I got some gifts for the kids. And, it was the kids' African Lion Safari or wherever the kids wanted to. Uncle Ron had, all these gift cards for them. But he provided great guidance to me. He really did. Carolyn Parrish, I've known Carolyn for north of 30 years. We may not see eye to eye on things, but we have a lot of respect for each other. I have a lot of respect for her. She's referred to as Auntie Carolyn, still do. Diane Kalinchuk is somebody else. The epitome of volunteerism. I love her as well. I affectionately call her Auntie Diane. A lot of these folks, Matthew, have been a part of not even mine, but my family's life and journey.
Yep.
That they've seen Sonia and Urgin, my kids, grow up around them. So my son and daughter, Sonia and Urgin, they call like Luz del Rosario and Resty from Culture Philippines.
Yep.
They call them Auntie Luz and Uncle Resty. They'll call Diane, like we call Diane Auntie Diane, because we've had this love and organizations have seen the kids grow. Well, they say, what's Sonia doing these days? Well, have her give me a call. Ellen McGregor, she says, have Sonia give me a call. I might have some business for her. Carol Kataka says, have Sonia give me a call. I think I'd like to have her do some work. Safe City Mississauga. I could go on and on. Same thing with Urgin. What's her, well, he's thinking about law and all. Well, let him know that if there's, once he's decided what he wants to do, there'll be a space for him here. It's a blessing. We look after each other. We may be the sixth largest city in Canada, but we're still very close and look after each other. Like it's absolutely wonderful. I was at the Twas the Bite before Christmas, and it was Urgin's birthday, and they asked me to host it. And I asked Urgin, I said, look, I know it's your birthday. We always do the family dinner and all that stuff, but he says, Dad, this is for charity. This is for the food bank. You go ahead. We'll do dinner other time. So it's really good. It's a blessing. Lewis Lawrence was another one that impacted my life. The citizens of Mississauga, when I talk to them, when I walk around, when I look at the impact that I've been blessed to make, whether it's my role in arts, business, education, culture, heritage, it's a blessing. It's a blessing, and I can say that, I did the little I could to make my city better, So it's been really wonderful when I look at Trillium Health Partners and what we're doing,
I don't
building
know
the
if the word little
largest
comes to
hospital
mind,
in
Jake,
Canada.
when I hear this. I marvel that you find the time to do what you do. I think, and obviously you're never one who says no. So it's, but the love of your city comes through in your words and your actions, and our city is better for it. And as one resident to another, I thank you for that. You truly have shown the way and shown the light of what Mississauga can be and can provide. And um, the people you mentioned, all giants within our community in their own very humble ways, many of them. And Mississauga is again better for it. Now, if you could switch hats, and we've been talking backwards, and we could do this for hours and hours, and I really love to do that. The If you had a wish for the city moving forward, this is still your home, a place you love and are attached to, and you've seen grow to where it is. The 50th anniversary is not the end chapter. Like, we are celebrating, and we should celebrate, but we turn the page, we're on to the next 50 now. And if you had a vision for the city moving forward, or a wish for the city moving forward, what might that be?
I would want, because we've got a lot of newcomers that have come in. I want them to feel it's their city. And the way to do that is to do what I did. I immersed myself in my city, and I want them to get involved. I want them to get engaged. I want them to say, you know what? I left where I left to be here, and it's my home now. And how do I make it my home? How do I make it for, my home for my generations to come? So I want them to integrate. I want them to get engaged. I want them to celebrate their own culture and heritage, but also look at the larger city and the region and the country. Say, okay, how do I make this mine? And what can I do to make it a better place? I think that is important. I think we need to be more and more inclusive. We should not tolerate each other. We should respect, understand, and learn and love each other. I think that's important. A lot of this has to do with our heritage as well. We have to remember in order for you to go forward, you have to know where you came from. I've always believed in that. My father always talked about our ancestry, our heritage. And similarly, when I look at our city has an incredible heritage. When you look at the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations, when you look at all of that history that we've had, when you look at this one incredible mayor who was the mayor for so many years, and what we've built, and how we've grown, I think we all need to learn about our heritage. I think that's very important. And as we grow, we have to look at how do we remain accessible and commutable, so it's not taking us longer. It's not, so these are folks that, these are the business leaders and the municipal folks and, the elected officials that have to start thinking about that sort of stuff. But I think I want us to be a world-class city, where people say, Mississauga is the place to be, and they should be able to pronounce it correctly. But yeah, I've made this my home, my family, and I love Mississauga. We're not going anywhere. In fact, we're doing what we can to build it, make it better, and for our generations. And I'm starting to see my kids are starting to do that by volunteering in their community, by doing what's needed. And I would encourage others, to do the same. Whether you've been here for, north of 10 years or longer, or you've been here for you're a newcomer that just showed up, the last month, you make it yours. And we got to provide the right tools and the infrastructure and the resources to make sure that they have that as well. Yeah.
Well, you are, in every definition of the word, a wonderful role model for that concept of involvement and community growth, community building, I guess, and positivity. It radiates from your words and your actions. I appreciate it. I don't know if you'll remember this, but this is what perked in my mind. I was trying to remember when I met you, and back in the early 2000s, probably 2002, working with Heritage Mississauga, we had a show on Rogers where we were portraying people of the past, and we're doing kind of like a trivia thing about local history and stuff. And I got convinced to go out there. I'm not a costume kind of guy, but I got convinced to do that. And I walked in, never doing any of this kind of thing before, never being on Rogers TV, anything like that. And you were the first person I met. Steve, I think you were walking past the front desk at the time, and I walked in, and you were there, and you stopped and shook my hand, and you said, something about welcome or, glad to see you kind of thing. And you asked who I was, and you actually engaged me in conversation for a few minutes, and I was immediately felt welcome there. And I think that is something that wherever you've gone, you make people feel welcome. And so,
Thank
thank
you, Matthew. I appreciate that. You know, you spoke about Rogers TV, but just very quickly, that station, Matthew, um, saw many folks that are now in the industry. And it started with, a blessing that when I was there, Zoraida Alman, Jacqueline Milcharik, Pooja Honda, Gurdeep Aluvalia, Lance Chilton, Anne Marie Green, Francis D'Souza, Zoraida, the list, Jason Portuando, the list goes on and on and on and on. And these are folks just in front of the camera, so many that were behind the camera as well. So it was a blessing. And it was that community hub, and it was great that we were able to celebrate heritage. You coming in, and yeah, though as Jamie at Heritage always says, please come on in. The coffee's always warm.
Yep. And you know what? If any Brother Rogers is ever listening to this, we miss it.
Yeah, I hear
But
you.
with that, Jake, I thank you so very much for all that you do, but for spending some time with us here and to explore moments and milestones and memories of Mississauga. I really appreciate you taking part of this program, and delighted to chat with you always.
Thank you for having me, my friend.
Thank you for spending some time with us here on the program. And thank you also to Jake Dheer for sharing his memories, moments, and milestones with us for the City of Mississauga's 50th anniversary. Like, subscribe, and follow us, and we will see you on future episodes here with Heritage Mississauga.